Hi, my name is Chuck Eastman, and a couple of years ago, I watched in total disbelief as an 8-year-old girl instantly crippled and permanently blinded the full-grown man who attacked her, using a deadly technique that even the UFC banned from their rings for being too brutal. I had no idea at the time, but soon found out she learned the ruthless techniques from her father, an ex-paramilitary soldier, assassin, and self-defense expert who had trained in martial arts since he was in diapers. And as you'll soon learn in this short video, he combined all his training with a hidden American brawler self-defense system, one that was invented in the dog-eat-dog backwoods of the American frontier and the kill-or-be-killed cells of the American prison system. In the next couple of minutes, I'll prove that anyone can master this lethal, lazy man self-defense system in the next 8 days. And it doesn't matter if you're 8 years old, 18 years old, or even 81, or if you only weigh 130 pounds soaking wet. It doesn't even matter if you have any previous fighting or fitness experience. In fact, it helps if you don't. This no-holds-barred method is so incredibly natural and instinctual that young women who can't open a jar of pickles on their own use this exact same method to take down bodybuilders and bouncers 3 times their size after just 15 minutes of training. This instant kill system is so utterly devastating and dirty that every single one of its moves has been completely banned from martial arts competitions. So, if you're a parent, a grandparent, a spouse, or a concerned homeowner, I'm begging you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say, because right now, you, your loved ones, and anyone else under your roof are undoubtedly in very serious danger. The FBI reports that almost 4 million home invasions and robberies happen in the U.S. every year, which means that every 20 seconds, some lowlife kicks down the door to someone's home, making the U.S. the world leader in home robberies. And in 1/3 of those home invasions, someone is home when the crime goes down, which is why the Department of Justice reports that 60% of all rapes in the United States happen during break-ins. And since you can buy a set of bump keys online that'll open 9 out of 10 doors without any hassle at all, and only costs $20 by the way, these horrible statistics just keep skyrocketing. Now, if you're like me, you've probably thought about what you would do in a home invasion situation. I mean, worrying about the safety of our families is something we do every single day. But until I experienced a potentially fatal home invasion and almost watched my precious wife and little daughter get slaughtered, I always thought I'd be able to keep on defending them. I had the fancy alarm system and deadbolt locks on all of my doors, and on top of that, I served in the Army, so I had hand-to-hand combat and weapons training. Plus, I regularly box with a trainer down at my local gym, just to keep in shape and make sure if anyone threatens my family that I'm able to do something about it. Well, that's not how it worked out in real life. Even the .45 caliber handgun I've kept in my nightstand over the last 30 years was totally useless. Here I thought I'd done everything I could to make sure my home was secure, but that terrifying experience flipped my entire world upside down, forcing me to realize that training in traditional martial arts or owning a weapon, even things like tasers, pepper spray, or high-tech alarm systems, are sometimes useless in the face of pure pre-planned evil, which is why it's absolutely critical that you stick with me through this quick video so I can show you how anyone can completely master this unbelievably practical, dead simple, bone-crushing method in just 1 week from now, and finally have the confidence to walk with your head held high, knowing that you have the street-tested and unstoppable skills to keep your loved ones and your property safe from intruders, even if you're walking with a cane or still learning how to read. Now, I realize that everything I've just said may sound a little unbelievable, and trust me, as someone who has trained with some of the most grizzled and rough-and-tumble master sergeants in the military, When I first heard about this illegal method, I thought there was no way it could actually be real. But why don't I let you hear from a couple of other Americans who've already used this survival system to defend themselves? People like Tammy Miller in Dallas, Texas, who wrote me just last month telling me how she used the scissor swing to put a 197-pound rapist on the ground in seconds outside the grocery store late one night. Dear Chuck, this experience will haunt me for the rest of my life, and I shudder to think about what could have happened to me if I didn't know about your self-defense system. The guy came up behind me and wrapped both of his arms around me. It felt like a vice grip. I was so terrified, I couldn't even think straight, which is why I'm so glad that the moves are like a reflex. Because in about 2 seconds, I shifted my weight and used his own momentum against him. I couldn't believe it when he tumbled to the ground and I was able to escape and call 911. You saved my life, and I really will never be able to thank you enough. Or how about this note from a 16-year-old Paul Farrell in Georgia, who used the switch to safely and instantly immobilize and humiliate a bully without actually causing him any harm. Hi, Chuck. There's this big kid at school that picks on me and a couple of my friends because we're not big enough to play on his football team. Well, I just try not to think about all of the horrible names he calls us, and we always just run away whenever he tries to get in our faces. My grandpa got me your self-defense system, and I started reading it over Christmas break. Well, when I got back, he was waiting for me and jumped me as I came around one of the corners in the hall. I was going to try and run, but he grabbed my shirt. When that happened, it was like instinct took over, and since I don't want to get in trouble for punching him, all I did was use your one-finger submission, and he was on the ground at my feet in an instant. Thank you so much. You've just made going to school 1,000% better. I wish I could fit in all of the incredible stories of how this American scrap-style self-defense system has saved people's lives, protected them from criminals, and given men and women, fathers and mothers, the confidence to finally sleep well at night. But I'm sure you're curious to hear about how I stumbled across this no-effort self-defense system, and how, a few months after my family and I were nearly killed in our home, I found myself in an underground fight club negotiating with the only living descendant of the world's last real ninja. Like I said earlier, my name is Chuck Eastman. I'm 58 years old, and I live just outside of Akron, Ohio, with my beautiful wife of over 30 years, Sandra. We have one son, Kyle, who's married and lives across town with his wife and their beautiful 8-year-old daughter, Kimmy. I've been a member of the Army Reserve since I was in college and absolutely love going to drill and practice with my unit once a month. And as for my job, I've worked at the local DMV for the last 3 decades. Now, I'm 6 foot tall and I weigh about 200 pounds, so I'm not a small person. And with my years of training in the Army and my weekly boxing sessions, I've always felt like I could hold my own in a fight or confrontation. Now, on the night that our house got invaded by masked thugs, Kimmy and one of her friends, Megan, happened to be staying with us. So my son Kyle and his wife could have a date night. Of course, Kimmy absolutely loves staying with us because Grandma always spoils her rotten with sweets and goodies. And whenever she spends the night, we try to make it special by setting up little pup tents in the living room for her to camp in. Well, after we turned off the lights and said goodnight to the girls, I did my usual routine of checking all the doors and windows to make sure they were closed and locked tight. And right before I jumped into bed, I set the house alarm system so that if anyone broke in, we'd know about it and the police would get an alert too. Well, so much for that peace of mind, because I woke up to the sound of Kimmy and Megan's little feet trampling up the stairs to our master bedroom. She was yelling, "Grandpa, Grandpa, there's someone watching us sleep." I was in a haze and barely even understood what she was saying. But I remember looking at the clock. It was exactly 2:11 a.m. And then I heard several very loud and aggressive thumps of someone violently kicking in the front door to my house. And as my home alarm started to blare, everything suddenly registered. I looked at my wife, whose eyes were about as wide as dinner plates, and I distinctly remember feeling the fear rip through my whole body. followed by intense rage that these cowards were inside my house. I whispered to my wife to get the girls and take them to the bathroom, lock the door, and call 911. As she gathered them up in her arms, I heard the invaders' heavy pounding on the steps up our stairs. As I yanked open my nightstand to grab my handgun, I realized my wife wouldn't make it to safety before the intruders burst in through the door. But I jammed the magazine into the gun as fast as I could, clicked the safety off, and racked a bullet into the chamber. But it was already too late. "Drop it," one of the thugs said to me as he grabbed my wife and Kimmy and pointed his pistol at her head. The other coward picked up Megan and put a big, shiny knife to her throat. In the movies, the hero always has a way out of every situation, but as I learned the hard way, in the real world, things never happen that way. As I carefully set my gun down on the bed, I had no idea what would happen next. The alarm was still raging throughout the house, and since the thugs weren't grabbing any of our valuables yet, I could only assume that they were there just to hurt us. I remember feeling the most intense sense of regret and shame that I couldn't protect my family, and I hated it. Even with a loaded gun in my hand, I was completely helpless against these guys, who had taken complete control of my entire house and everyone in it within a matter of seconds. Well, as I raised my hands above my head and was about to start begging these lowlifes to let the women and kids go and just keep me, I saw Megan's hand move lightning fast and jab two of her fingers into the elbow joint of the thug who was holding her. And it was like she'd pressed an automatic release button because his knife hand just went totally limp. As the knife fell to the ground, her captor released her to grab at his dead hand. And before the other guy knew what was going on, Megan swung her leg with all the force her little body could muster and landed one of the most brutal crotch kicks I'd ever seen to the other attacker. But Megan wasn't finished yet, because as he doubled over in total agony, she formed the fingers into two claws and slashed her fingernails across both of his eyes, completely blinding him permanently. It was absolutely mind-boggling. In under 5 seconds, she disabled two criminals who looked like they were 5 times her size, and also rescued my family in the process. Well, I immediately took advantage of the chaos she'd caused, and before either of the vandals knew what was happening, I had my gun pointed at them, and my wife took the girls downstairs where she called 911. After everything was over, I started shaking with all the adrenaline now pouring out of me. I was so grateful that no one had been killed or even hurt, but after my initial gratitude, those overwhelming feelings of guilt and shame came roaring back. Because I'd been completely unable to protect my precious wife, my granddaughter, and a guest in my house. That's the first responsibility of any man with a family. And despite everything I'd done, I was a total failure. But on top of that, an 8-year-old girl was the one who had her wits about her. It was her, not me, who knew what to do despite how stressful and terrifying the situation was, and was able to save my family from almost certain harm and maybe even death. But while the criminals were in jail and the whole ordeal was over, my journey was just beginning. And it all started when Megan's father came to pick her up from our house. When he arrived, I noticed that her dad, whose name was Kain Aoki, had a very distinct walk. And after a few minutes of apologizing profusely and explaining everything that happened, followed by answering his questions while I secretly prayed he wasn't going to sue us for everything we're worth, I invited him into my house to continue our conversation, specifically asking him about those moves Megan just pulled off. But at that point, he abruptly explained that he and Megan had to leave. I chalked it up to the fact that his daughter had been through a traumatic ordeal, and he probably just wanted some time with her to process everything as a family, which made perfect sense. But as I walked them to the car, I had to know the answer to the one question burning in my mind since the attack. How did Megan know exactly where to strike her captor so that he would drop his knife? It was a technique I'd never seen before, and I wondered if her dad knew anything about it. But when I asked her father, all he said was, "We don't speak about that." and then rushed to get in the car with Megan before driving away. Well, all that did was make me even more curious. So after the police and detectives left my house, and after my wife and I had taken a few days to really just get through everything we were feeling, I immediately started digging around online to see if there were anything that could help me figure out which martial art she used. Now, I don't have much to go on because everything happened in the blink of an eye, but I started Googling the most lethal and devastating self-defense methods in the world. And as I scoured hundreds of pages of search results, I was absolutely stunned that I couldn't find anything other than traditional methods. I found lots of results for things like karate studios and kung fu masters, plus quite a few of those ridiculous Tai Chi martial arts that claim to disable your attackers using just energy. Well, I had no interest in studying some set of flowery kicks that wouldn't have any real-world usage except to make me look ridiculous. And I didn't have time to spend years mastering one of those martial arts, or spend thousands of dollars in class fees for something that wouldn't even help me one bit. But I didn't stop there, because I also wanted to look further into some items and equipment that I could have used in my traumatic home invasion experience. Things like pepper spray, batons, and tasers. But while I found thousands of different products, I also read that those self-defense systems are often stripped away from victims by the attackers, and then immediately used against you. Well, despite everything that I was reading, I wasn't about to just give up, so I decided to go straight to the source. A buddy of mine had spent 20 years on the police force, and I called him up just to see what law enforcement recommends for ordinary citizens. Well, you know what he told me? He said the best thing I could have done is to call the police. That was a little hard to do when I had an armed criminal pointing a gun at my wife's head. On top of that, I read that it can take several minutes for the police to get to your house. And as I'd seen from first-hand experience, a home invader can completely take over an entire home and even murder you in a matter of a few seconds. Well, after that phone call, I realized that I was quickly running out of options. And I knew that if I really wanted to figure out the self-defense tactic that Megan had used, I would have to do something more drastic. Now, I'm not proud of what I did next, but as I mentioned before, I work at the local DMV, and we have special software that lets you run background checks on people. Not only that, but we can find out a person's entire life history as long as we know only a few pieces of information. Well, I used my computer to find out everything I could about Kane Aoki. And while it wasn't much, I still discovered that Kane owned and operated a little Japanese restaurant in town. So I decided to pay him a visit just to talk with him. Well, when I got to the restaurant, it was already dark and the lights inside were all turned off, which I thought was really strange for a Friday night. And I was about to leave when I suddenly heard what sounded like screams and yelling coming from around the back of the restaurant. As I slowly walked to the rear of the restaurant, I noticed the back door to the basement was cracked open, and as I walked down the stairs and through the door, the metallic smell of blood mixed with sweat filled my nose. Ahead of me in the middle of the room, two young shirtless guys were beating each other senseless in a circle of cheering onlookers. It was like some sort of underground fighting ring. I got one step inside when two massive bouncers stepped out of nowhere and stopped me. I explained that I needed to talk to Kane and that his daughter had saved my life. Well, whatever I said worked, and Kane was brought around, looking very annoyed at me, but he agreed to go back outside to talk. I apologized again and explained how I'd done everything in my power to protect my family, but it hadn't been enough. Then I begged him to tell me how I could learn the type of moves Megan used to disable the attacker. I just had to know, not just for my own curiosity, but so I could defend my family. Well, because I'd already discovered Kane's hidden fight club, he was a bit more willing to tell me about his past, and boy, was it unusual to say the least. It turns out Kane's grandfather was one of the last true living ninjas on Earth. And while Kane was born in the U.S., he had traveled to Japan with his father when he was just a toddler to study under his grandfather's brutal instructions. But before he could even begin training, his grandfather and father forced him to swear in his life that he would never tell a single soul about the training he would receive. And once he had taken this sacred blood oath, his lethal schooling began. He studied every single style of martial art and self-defense for decades, everything from your basic karate and kung fu to jujitsu, judo, and many more. And when he was thoroughly done training, he came back to the U.S., where he was contracted by private security companies, corporations, and even the government. But after putting his skills to the test in countless real-world situations across the globe, Kane realized that there were several huge problems with his formal martial arts training. First, in the heat of the battle, intricate punches and acrobatic kicks were totally useless. And second, he got frustrated that it took so long to disable his enemies, because both of these flaws could mean the difference between life or death for him. So he immediately started looking for other, more powerful and ruthless self-defense methods. What Kane discovered was that while most people assume all martial arts come from Asia, there were actually two different American martial arts systems that had existed for hundreds of years, and compared to the formal, disciplined kung fu and taekwondo he learned when he was young, these two American fighting systems were all about using any means at your disposal, including so-called cheat shots, to devastate your opponent's weakest points and to survive. Well, over the last 30 years, Kane had completely adopted and absorbed both of the American fighting systems, which I'll tell you even more about in just a moment, and completely merged them with all of the deadly Asian fighting techniques he'd been trained in since his childhood. Once he did that, he said he noticed an immediate increase in not only his efficiency as a Special Forces soldier, but he also felt safer going into his missions and assignments, since he wasn't just relying on his traditional martial arts training, and could dismantle his enemies in a matter of seconds. So I asked him why on earth he didn't open up a training studio and start teaching people these techniques. But Kane immediately rejected that idea. First of all, he said, he was sworn to secrecy by his father and grandfather. Only people in his family line could learn them. Because they were instant kill tactics and deadly by nature, not something people could be trusted with. That the techniques he learned from these lethal American methods were so dangerous that if too many people knew about them, they would undoubtedly use them for evil instead of for emergency self-defense situations like I'd just faced a few nights before. But then he confessed that his restaurant was actually about to shut down because he was completely broke, which is the only reason why he was letting this fight club use his basement, because it was the only way for him to keep a roof over his daughter's head and put food on the table. Well, that was all I needed to hear. I told him I'd pay him any amount if he'd just teach me the deadliest moves he knew, that if he could help me save my family the next time, God forbid, I was ever faced with such a nightmare again, then I could help save his restaurant from closing its doors. He stared hard at me, weighing his options until he finally nodded in agreement. But he told me that I must swear never to show these moves to another living soul, and that no one could know he was even instructing me to begin with. Well, the amount of relief that poured through me was only stopped by the shockingly huge amount of money he wanted in return. But even though it would definitely put a strain on my wife and I financially, I felt for the sake of my family and for my own confidence as a husband, father, and man, and after everything my family had been through, that this was something I just had to do. So I went down to the bank and took out a loan just to be able to pay Kane's fees. And we started training the very next day. But when I started to see how uniquely vicious his system was, I stopped worrying about the money altogether. Because I knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt after just a couple of hours with Kane, that these instant kill techniques were priceless. If I'd known just one of the techniques he'd showed me when these criminals burst into my room, I would have been able to instantly disable those thugs and keep my family from having to live through that nightmare. Over the next 8 lessons, Kane proceeded to show me dozens of different deadly tactics, all of which crushed and brutalized the most vulnerable spots on the human body, spots you'd never think to hit. Beyond the obvious methods of just gouging someone's eyes out with your thumbs or kicking them in the testicles. These were downright mean and dirty techniques that could cripple or maim any attacker in seconds. And when he showed me how to combine these chinks in the human armor with just the smallest amount of force, it made so much more sense how an 8-year-old kid could drop a grown man with virtually zero effort at all. Let me just quickly tell you 3 of my favorite no-rules moves that you can use today, even if you've never actually practiced them before. Now, I can't tell you the names of these techniques just yet, but they are absolutely ruthless. Like the eye gouger move. This move is so effective, Kane had to force me to slow down so I didn't end up permanently blinding him. The palm heel tactic. Learn how to lightning-fast, devastating punches without shattering the fragile bones in your knuckles, a common rookie mistake. Or the leg paralyzing maneuver. Once this subtle and low-speed move is loaded into your subconscious, you'll be able to permanently paralyze anyone. Now, I'll tell you about a few more of Kane's moves in a second, but after I'd spent 8 days training with him, I was absolutely astounded when he suddenly announced that my training was complete. You see, unlike other martial arts where you have to practice and repeat complex moves for years before you can even come close to mastering them, the techniques and tactics that Kane used were so elementary and simple that he said you could even just watch someone perform the moves, and they would be automatically uploaded into your nerves, muscles, and even into your subconscious. Just like when your knee jerks when your doctor taps it with a rubber mallet. These moves become like an automatic reflex without thinking, which not only means you can learn every single devastating move in a matter of days instead of years, but that you don't even have to practice them in order for them to become second nature to you. Now, after my training with Kane, something very strange started happening to me. I was walking with my head held high and my shoulders square instead of slouching over like I used to. I also caught myself looking strangers in the eye when I spoke with them, something I never did before. And at home, I was more confident in initiating intimacy with my wife, which, let me tell you, she didn't seem to mind one bit. It was like all of my self-doubt and insecurity had completely vanished. And while I was definitely enjoying it, it took me a couple of days to get used to all of the raw power that I felt coursing through my body. Like I just bought a brand new muscle car and was adjusting to the higher horsepower it came with. It was amazing. And even though I'd paid an arm and a leg for Kane's training, it was worth it. Plus, without the lump sum I'd given him, Kane would have lost his restaurant, even though he still said he was facing money problems. Well, after everything he'd shown me and knowing he was still struggling financially, I just didn't feel like I'd given enough in return. So, here's the deal I offered him. What if we worked together to package his entire instant kill self-defense system into a comprehensive training manual with new names for the deadly techniques he devised so no one could even trace it back to him? But here's the catch. We would only put it up online until his restaurant was 100% above water, and I'd paid off the new line of credit I opened. After we reached these goals, we would instantly take the entire website down and completely delete his entire program. I even offered to change his name as well as his daughter's name for total protection of their identity. Well, when I put it that way, Kane had to agree. He really didn't have any better options on the table, and since both his father and grandfather had already passed away, he made me swear the same ancient Japanese blood oath he had to seal the deal. So, for the next couple of weeks, he and I worked night and day together. And the end result of all of our hard work was what we call the Forbidden Kill Strikes. Here's what you get inside. First, the Forbidden Kill Strikes includes all of the early American and prison-style fight maneuvers, brutal and even barbaric moves used throughout the last 2 centuries to defend early American frontiersmen and settle inmate disputes, and they're simply not available together anywhere else except for this unique guide. Second, Kane seamlessly integrated only the simplest, deadly fighting techniques from around the globe. Since he was a child, he'd studied dozens of martial arts systems, tactics, and survival maneuvers handed down from his warrior grandfather that I guarantee you've never heard of, and also some remote ones people whisper about on martial arts forums like Salat from Malaysia and Krav Maga from Israel, just to name a couple. So, instead of having to master every single one of these, which would take several lifetimes, you can have their most powerful and devastating moves combined with completely unknown and hidden kill styles to give you supremely lethal advantage over any opponent, like the insane elbow move that comes straight from the hardened battlefields of ancient Israel and crushes your attacker's jugular, or the 1-second escape maneuver, which instantly frees you from any chokehold and allows you to strangle them with your knee, or the jaw-slicing technique, a cross between a bloody move used by government interrogators before it became illegal, and a barbaric, skin-puncturing jab prison inmates use. Caution, this one's bloody and should only be used in life-threatening situations. And because all of these techniques are so easy to master, since they come second nature once seen, the Forbidden Kill Strikes lets you instantly upload them into every muscle fiber and nerve in your body. But that's just the beginning. Because, and one of my favorites, after my gun proved useless when those two jokers invaded my home, is that the Forbidden Kill Strikes also includes a detailed guide to fighting with common household objects. Not just knives and bats, but shoes, toothpicks, umbrellas, and many more. Plus, you'll learn how to rapidly construct a range of improvised weapons, including how to transform a piece of paper into a rock-hard glove if you fold it a certain way, and other genius on-the-spot weapons that you can create even if you've been tied up. Now, I experienced firsthand that your enemy will often be armed with a gun, knife, or metal weapon of some kind. So, inside the Forbidden Kill Strikes, you'll also learn lightning-fast and totally unstoppable ways to instantly strip your enemy's weapon right out of your hand whenever you want to, whether it's a rifle, baseball bat, switchblade, handgun, or even a taser or pepper spray. This includes moves like the swinging scissor move, which is one of the fastest and most effective ways to immediately disable any attacker with a weapon at close range, and the trip switch maneuver, which simultaneously removes you from the path of a knife strike while totally incapacitating your attacker. Now, let me make something very clear. The entire Forbidden Kill series, 100% of it, can easily be mastered and used with lethal results by anyone. It doesn't matter how old you are, how strong you are, or even if you weigh 120 pounds soaking wet. The Forbidden Kill Strikes is designed for anyone who wants to defend themselves. However, after his daughter Megan was born, Kane realized that he needed to update some of his techniques for someone much smaller, so that even she could take down individuals who were much stronger and way larger than her, which is why he developed a set of specific methods and moves that exploit certain advantages of being smaller. For example, when an attacker picks up a child, they usually leave themselves open to a wide range of attacks, which is exactly why Megan was able to instantly disable the thug who was holding her. So, if you're buying the Forbidden Kill Strikes as a gift, or if you're one of our treasured, seasoned citizens, you'll not only be able to master the entire survival Bible of Forbidden Kill Strikes, but you'll also get absolutely lethal and ferocious strategies that are designed specifically to exploit your unique advantages. Now, since putting the Forbidden Kill Strikes up online just a couple of months ago, over 1,578 Americans and people around the world have already grabbed their copy of it. And if it doesn't seem like a lot, just remember that this is a brand new program. But also remember As the number of people who grab the forbidden kill strikes goes up, we get closer and closer to reaching our goal and pulling it all offline. But the good news is that the forbidden kill strikes is already saving lives. Just listen to Erica Hegelson in West Virginia, who writes, "When my fiancé told me about these forbidden kill strikes, I instantly thought that this was all just a huge joke. I mean, moves that got handed down from the last living ninja? Come on. The only reason I went through this guide with him was so that he could feel better. But I can't believe what a huge blessing it has already been for us. Only 2 weeks later, as I was walking in my car late after work, when this gross old creepy guy ran at me with a shovel. It was like I was living a scene out of some awful horror movie. I didn't even have time to think of what to do. It was like my instinct just kicked in, and even though I was half this guy's size, it was like the moves in the forbidden kill strikes were already programmed into my body. Because in less than a second, I had the guy on his back on the ground, and I was holding his shovel while I called the police. When the police got there, they said that they had a warrant out for this guy because he was suspected of trying to kidnap 2 other young women. I just can't believe that I could have ended up as another one of his victims, or a side story in the local newspaper, "Local Girl Goes Missing." Which is why I thank God every day that I took a few minutes each day to master the forbidden kill strikes, because I'm afraid to even think about what would have happened to me if I hadn't. And here's another email I got from David Means in Idaho. "Hey, Chuck, I know a lot of people probably laughed at you when you told them about the forbidden kill strikes, but not me. I was sold instantly. Man, I love UFC, and I'm part of a bunch of underground websites for guys who like to learn about these unheard of martial arts. I even traveled to Japan to learn more about some of the ancient art of ninjutsu. So when I found out that you made contact with your mentor and that he'd put all of his secret moves into an actual guide, I ordered it right then and there. But my only concern was that I was too old to use the program. I'm 63 years old, so I'm not a young man anymore, but I was able to master all of the moves in just a few days. And I'm even able to get a little exercise by practicing them from my couch. I also love the security of knowing that I can hold my own with any of those punk kids in their 20s. And here's one more horrifying email from Nick Harding in Illinois. "Dear Chuck, I teach high school math at a school outside Chicago, and I'm writing to you just a couple of days after this happened. But during the middle of one of my calculus lessons, one of my students stood up just right in the middle of class and charged straight at me with a knife. I had only just gotten the forbidden kill strikes, but thank God for that. Because I didn't want to know what would have happened if I hadn't already gotten a couple of techniques down. In less than a second, this kid, Taylor, who I actually knew pretty well, was right on top of me. And without even thinking, I used the switch trip tactic you showed me and stripped the knife out of his hand while also tossing him a good distance into my desk. Anyways, of course, the whole class was in total shock, and after the police came in and left, I made sure that every single one of the teachers at our school grabbed a copy of Forbidden Kill Strikes. Now, the emails and letters above are just a small handful of the dozens and dozens that I get every month from clients. And with everything you've heard so far, I want you to think about it for a second. Once you've secured your copy of the Forbidden Kill Strikes, which you're just a moment away from doing, how good will it feel to never again have to worry about the safety of your friends, family, and loved ones? Can you even imagine the peace you'll feel when you never have to worry about getting bullied, robbed, or even murdered? Never have to worry about being subjected to physical or even psychological harm of any kind? How secure would you feel to never think about becoming one of those victims you see on the nightly news? And just think about how 10, 20, or even 30 years from now, you'll still be just as able to protect your family as you were when you first learned the secrets inside the Forbidden Kill Strikes. Of course, there are other options out there for self-defense and home security. You could go buy a gun if you don't already have one, but even if I'd owned 10 fully automatic machine guns, grenades, and a bazooka, none of those things would have even mattered after those thugs grabbed my wife and granddaughter. Plus, are you really going to bring your gun everywhere with you? Not only is that illegal in many states, but it's just impractical. What if you forget it on the one fateful day when you find yourself looking down the barrel of someone else's gun, like I did? Even more terrifying is if your attacker somehow knocks your gun out of your hand and turns it on you. Another alternative is to spend years mastering one of those formal martial arts styles at your local karate studio. But make sure you remember it will take years and thousands of hours of practice, and at $30 a class, you'll end up spending $6,000 to $12,000 before you gain even a basic mastery of it. Can you really afford to waste that kind of time and money? Especially when all of that is totally unnecessary, since the Forbidden Kill Strikes is all you'll ever need. And it is chock full of all of the world's deadliest techniques, lethal combinations, based off a huge range of martial arts, so that you can completely protect your family as soon as tonight. Now, after everything you've heard, you're probably anxious to know what you need to get started. First, let me make something crystal clear. There is nothing else like the Forbidden Kill Strikes available anywhere in the world. This turnkey self-defense method contains never-before-seen techniques. And until now, all of these moves have been known only to top-level masters, assassins, early American frontiersmen, and tough-as-nails jailhouse criminals. So, if it wasn't for Kane and my work on the Forbidden Kill Strikes, they would have remained completely hidden from you and everyone else forever. The reason I'm so passionate about getting this program into your hands is pretty simple. I never want you to have to experience what my wife, my granddaughter, and I did. It's a nightmare that still flashes in front of our eyes at night. But it doesn't have to be that way for you. Because today, you have the opportunity to make sure you and your family are always safe, whether you're asleep in your home or walking through an empty parking lot late at night with your spouse, and some disgusting pervert starts following you with evil in his eyes. I desperately want you to feel the kind of confidence that lets you take matters into your own hands, no matter how dangerous the situation is. Because you just never know where or when danger will strike. It might be in a local movie theater, on the beach when you go for vacation, or even in the peace and quiet of your own secure home. The point is, if you're not prepared, then what happens next could be tragic and even fatal. Over 1,500 now vigilant individuals have already made that investment in the Forbidden Kill Strikes at the regular retail price of $247. Now, in my opinion, that's an incredibly fair deal, especially when you think about how the Forbidden Kill Strikes could keep your precious loved ones completely safe from harm. Because there's absolutely no way I could put a price tag on the security of my wife and family. On top of that, let's look through the entire Forbidden Kill Strikes program again to see everything you're getting. First, you get a combination of all of the early American scrap fighting and prison-style survival maneuvers used to maim, injure, and kill invaders and attackers. Second, you get a mix of the deadliest martial arts moves from savage self-defense systems from around the world, like Krav Maga and Silat, all of which have been morphed into never-before-seen techniques so simple and easy to understand that they'll instantly become second nature to you. Third, the all-inclusive guide on how to transform common household objects like newspapers and shoes into lethal weapons. Fourth, you'll see how to instantly disarm an attacker of any weapon, including guns, knives, sticks, swords, and more. So, given all that, while I do think that $247 is truly a bargain, I know that times are still tough out there for lots of honest, hard-working families. Hell, Kane knows that firsthand as he's done anything he can to provide for his daughter. Which is why, but only for a very limited time, I'm going to slash the investment price by 81%. But you really do need to act today, because if enough people jump on this discounted offer, Kane and I will be forced to live up to our promise of taking this site down. But if you act today, instead of paying the normal retail price of $247, which is what all the other 1,578 clients have gladly done, you'll be able to get the entire Forbidden Kill Strikes program for only $67. To get started, just click the big button you see below. And once you do that, you'll go immediately to my secure checkout page where you'll complete your order. It takes all of 5 seconds, and once you finish that, you'll be sent to your very own members-only area, where you'll have instant access to the entire Forbidden Kill Strikes program. You can view it right from your desktop or laptop computer, as well as your smartphone or tablet. Plus, if you want to, you can even download all the files and print out as many copies as you want. But if you want to get this rare discount, you have to act immediately. Kane and I swore a blood oath that we would take down this website after we reached our goal of keeping his restaurant alive. And the way things have been going, it could be any day now. Which is why you can't wait any longer, because the secrets inside the Forbidden Kill Strikes could be gone tomorrow. Now, if you're still feeling unsure about the Forbidden Kill Strikes program, then there's one more thing that you should hear about, and it's my 60-day, no questions asked, 100% money-back guarantee. Here's how my rock-solid guarantee works. Right now, all you have to do is say maybe to the Forbidden Kill Strikes method. Click the big button you see below and claim your instant access to these brutal, never-before-seen techniques. You will be absolutely amazed at how simple the entire program is to master, and shocked at the sudden flood of confidence that naturally comes when you have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that you can handle any situation, knowing that you could take down bad guys and threats to your family in a matter of seconds without breaking a sweat. But if you're not totally 100% satisfied with this program, or even if you feel that this is just too much responsibility and power for you to hold, then all you have to do is shoot me an email to my personal address that you'll get after you complete your order, and I will instantly refund your entire investment with absolutely 0 questions asked. This is a completely risk-free decision for you. All of the risk is on me, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that these days, because I know that this program has made me a hero to my wife, my grandkids, and my family. They all tell me that they feel more secure and safe, knowing that I can protect them, and I'm absolutely certain that it will do the same for you. Plus, you have a full 60 days to try before you buy. So at this point, the choice is yours. Of course, you're totally free to just click away from this presentation, and then do everything you can to forget what you've just seen. But if you do that, what will change? You'll still be living in fear for the rest of your life, fantasizing about what you'd do if masked thugs kicked in your door, worrying about what you would do if some creep grabbed at your wife or girlfriend, thinking about how you would react if, God forbid, in a week, a month, or even a year, some violent predator pulled a gun or knife and maliciously attacked you and your family. Wouldn't you think back to this very moment and ask yourself, why didn't you just simply click the big button and try the Forbidden Kill Strikes program totally risk-free? I truly hope that you don't make that costly mistake for the sake of your loved ones. Another option is to try out one of those martial arts classes and pray your instructor knows what they're talking about. Not to mention the thousands of dollars and years of wasted time you'll spend just to get pretty good at whatever artsy martial arts system you choose. And in the meantime, you'll still sense that fear and worry when a strange noise wakes you up at night, knowing that if someone is in your house, that you'd have absolutely no way to defend yourself and your loved ones. Why on earth would you make that decision? Just click the big button you see below and get full instant access to the entire Forbidden Kill Strikes program. And you'll be totally covered by my no questions asked, 100% money back guarantee for the next 60 days. This is the safest decision you'll ever make, and it's staring you in the face. But I can't click that button for you. So go ahead and invest in the most reliable security system ever. You. By grabbing your copy of Forbidden Kill Strikes today. And I'll see you inside your members-only area in just a few moments. Sincerely, Chuck Eastman. Still here? I have one more thing for you since you're still with me. You see, I found that there's a lot of people who watch this for the first time and are shocked by what they've just seen. But some still have questions or just want a quick review of everything in the presentation. And I want you completely clear on what I've said about the extraordinary Forbidden Kill Strikes program. So let me address some of the most common questions I get. 1. How does the Forbidden Kill Strikes program work? What makes it so effective? The Forbidden Kill Strikes method is so incredibly effective for 2 reasons. First, it comes from real-life, real-world situations in some of the harshest and most unforgiving environments. Like the Wild West, the backwoods of the American South, and our prison system. These places don't let you get away with any formal bowing or unnecessary movements, which is one reason why the Forbidden Kill Strikes is so lethal. The second reason is that because the moves are so simple, they can be learned very quickly, and even just by studying the moves, you can imprint them into your subconscious, so that your body has them at its disposal when a dangerous situation arises. 2. Who will this program work for? Am I too old for this program? Great question. The answer is a big no. You see, no matter how much muscle someone packs onto their body, we're all made up of the same parts and the same weak spots. The Forbidden Kill Strikes lets you target these universal weak spots that every human has. And by applying the same amount of pressure you might use to pick up a hamburger, you can inflict massive amounts of pain and damage while bringing your enemy to their knees. No matter how old or how weak you are, you could be 18 or 81, and the Forbidden Kill Strikes is perfect for you. 3. I don't have lots of spare time. How long will it take to master these techniques? I have several favorite things about the Forbidden Kill Strikes, and this is one of them. Special operations forces and martial arts masters are just like you in that they don't have lots of spare time either. But Kane still wanted to be able to add more deadly moves and techniques to his arsenal, which is exactly why he designed the Forbidden Kill Strikes to be super fast to learn. You can learn every single one of the deadly and devastating moves in the Forbidden Kill Strikes in as little as 8 days from right now. You can even practice many of the moves right from your couch while you watch TV. 4. What exactly is included in the Forbidden Kill Strikes program? First, you're getting all of the American frontier and prison-style fight maneuvers. Second, you're getting the most deadly martial arts moves collected from self-defense systems around the globe. Third, the improvised weapon manual that lets you transform everyday objects like newspapers and shoes into lethal weapons. Fourth, how to instantly disarm an attacker of any weapon they have. 5. How long will the program be available? I can't give an exact date on when Kane and I will pull down this website. We check every day to see if we've met our goal. But I can say that we're getting very close to being able to keep his restaurant open, and when that happens, this site will disappear forever. That means you absolutely must jump on this opportunity today while it's still available, while you still have an opportunity to begin protecting and securing your family. You have absolutely nothing to lose. There is zero risk for you. 6. What are the terms of that guarantee again? My rock-solid guarantee gives you a full 60 days to test drive the Forbidden Kill Strikes for yourself. Just click the big button to get started and you have instant access to the entire program. From there, you can take the next 2 months to try out the whole method for yourself. Take a few minutes per day to practice each of the moves and techniques, and you'll start to notice how much more confident you feel and how much safer you actually will be. But if you change your mind for any reason over the next 60 days, just send an email to the address I give you inside the members-only area, and I'll refund your entire investment with no questions asked. 7. How do I get started? Just click the big button, and after that, you'll be taken to a secure checkout page where you'll complete your order. It takes all of 5 seconds to gain full access to the Forbidden Kill Strikes program. So click the big button below now.